Hello and welcome to the HumanWare See Things Differently podcast. Each month, join your hosts Peter Tusick, Rachel Ramos, and David Woodbridge as we bring you engaging interviews from guests, interaction from our one-of-a-kind distribution partners, stories that'll take you off the beaten path, current promos, shows where you can find us, and so much more. So stick around.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day. I hope I got it right, just from the same way I did it in episode 1, or the brief intro version of this. Welcome to episode 2 of See Things Differently with HumanWare. My name is Peter Tusick, the Director of Strategic Partnerships at HumanWare, joined once again by Rachel Ramos. How's it going, Rachel?
Hey, Peter, I'm back.
Rachel has a new mic. Sounds great.
I do have a new mic. Got a mixer. I'm ready to go. Woo!
Yeah, settled in. Rachel is settled in.
You know it.
Glad you're here, Rachel. And David, how's the last month been? How's your third Thursday of the month going?
Very good. I'm just sitting here cringing quietly for Rachel's enthusiasm.
I'm just jazzed, David. I'm ready to go.
It's awfully fired up.
I'll just be the calm voice of reason from beyond the grave. I mean, beyond the southern hemisphere or something like that.
You're showing your age, David. Let's just calm down.
I know I am, aren't I? Whoops.
Oh, we are so glad to be back with everybody for the second episode. And this month, we're going to talk about lots of low vision themed pieces. And myself and Rachel and David, we're all totally blind. So it is Low Vision Awareness Month. And so we want to not necessarily step out of our comfort zones, but certainly talk a bit about low vision. And I think for all of us here, low vision is something that we aren't as familiar with as we are with blindness, being totally blind and dealing with Braille and all these other things. But we have an amazing program scheduled, so stay tuned for an interview and for our other segments that you will come to know quite regularly in terms of the tips and tricks. We will have our partner corner. We will also have our cringe-worthy piece and our hot take. And all of them will be themed around or sort of centered around low vision because it is Low Vision Awareness Month. To get things started, I want to welcome somebody who has a Master's of Music and Vocal Performance from Carnegie Mellon University. She's performed all over the world, from Tokyo to Heidelberg, certainly in places like Austria and Union Station in D.C., all over the place. Is a 2014 National Federation of the Blind Scholarship winner. In addition to all of that, she is a speaker, is a competitive ballroom dancer, and is currently the president of the National Federation of the Blind Performing Arts Division. Katelyn MacIntyre, how are you?
It's wonderful to be here with you all. Thank you so much for having me.
We're just so glad you can join us, and I can't wait for everyone to hear about all the cool things you do. And as a singer, as a ballroom dancer, we're going to get into all this. As a, actually, I should say competitive ballroom dancer, right?
Yes.
I think, there's a lot of things here, and I know we're recording this kind of late at night because you and I both have kiddos who are young and doing all these sorts of things. So we appreciate your time. How did you get into being a soprano opera singer and doing some amazing things? What got you going in that direction?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. My goodness, that has many layers to it. I grew up in a very musical family. So I have 2 older brothers, and we actually used to sing together as the MacIntyre family singers way back in the day. My brothers would switch off, yes, between tenor and bass, and my mom sang alto and I sang soprano. And that's kind of how I got my start in being musical together as a family. And both of my older brothers also went on to pursue some music in college, and one of them was a classical pianist for a while and became a singer-songwriter. The other did musical theater for many years, was on the Mamma Mia national tour, side note, which is another fun conversation. But so I kind of just always grew up around music, knowing it was something that I loved. Seeing them succeed at it gave me a vision for the fact, hey, I love this, and I could certainly pursue this as a career as well. And so I was very supported by my family, by my parents. And so when it came time for college, I just kind of naturally, I absolutely want to do a Bachelor of Music in Vocal Performance. Why not? Which is the degree one would pursue if one wants to study opera and art song and classical music and all those things. There are other variations, of course, of that. But that's what I did. So I went to college to receive my bachelor's, and then followed that with a master's degree also in vocal performance. And so I studied lots of different operas, different languages, art songs, Lieder, Melodie in German and French, things like that. Got to premiere a contemporary opera, do all kinds of different things. Also studied a little jazz and musical theater along the way. And I've been very blessed to do some wonderful performing. And then as I've kind of in the more recent years, I still love to perform when I can, but I, as mentioned, also do have two little ones, a 1.5-year-old and a 3.5-year-old right now, who keep me extremely busy. They are bundles of joy, but as, as parents can relate, they keep you tired and on your toes. It's a wonderful adventure, but performance schedules are a little more challenging at the moment. So I do a lot of teaching now as well, and so I teach voice, piano, guitar, music theory, mostly voice. And I can do that out of my home. I still do a lot of that virtually. I have several virtual students. And so anyway, it's a blessing. I get to still perform when I can, but also pass on a lot of what I've learned to others, and kind of still have my toe in that musical world, even though I'm also a full-time mom right now.
You're momming it up. That is absolutely awesome. How, I guess, as you're going through all of this, and I know we had spoken briefly prior to recording this, and I had asked you about having some usable vision. How does your low vision, or your blindness, your visual impairment, how does it impact when you're learning something from scratch? And I'm assuming, I know you said you teach theory, and that's great. So you do know music and music theory and things, but are you sight reading this music? What are you doing, and how do you mix like having a bit of usable vision, but maybe not that full piece? How does that work for you as you're starting to learn some of these new pieces, or even pieces well, taking stage direction and things? How's it been?
Yeah, and I will give the disclaimer that, I think every low vision musician is a little bit different, right? And so I may do it one way. This may work for someone. It may not work for someone else. But for me, in my college years and throughout my music learning journey and career, I have used a lot of large print music. And so that has looked like some pretty large pieces of paper. I actually have done 12 by 18 paper twice for every page of 8.5 by 11 music. I would often have, the top half of the page and then turn to the bottom half of the page. But the answer to can I sight read is no. I cannot read it fast enough. So, my vision is such, I have nystagmus, I'm farsighted, I have about 5 degrees of vision. So like all those things kind of combine that I can't really see a lot at once. It doesn't come through real clear. It takes me a minute to kind of focus on it. So I can't be going, note to note fast enough to keep up with it. I can't see the words at the same time as the music. So definitely sight reading is out. As far as the learning, I definitely would go very slowly in a practice room. So a measure of music is kind of a chunk of music, a phrase of music. And I would, look at that measure and maybe play the notes out on the piano, sing them back. Okay, let me repeat this a few times. Let me add the words in, or maybe read the words first and make sure I know what I'm saying, and then put the rhythm to it, put the music to it. So kind of different techniques, but a lot of very slow, making sure that I get it accurately, because that would be a shame to learn it wrong, right? If I'm spending all this time and I sang the wrong note. So I'm sure it's happened at some point.
Have you ever used any assistive technology, I guess both in learning or on stage at all? Anything. We know there are programs out there like Limelight or some other things. Have you ever dabbled in that, or have you just kind of not needed to?
That is a great question. I did not know about Limelighter years ago when I was in college, which is so sad. I think actually I did find out about it at one point, and my counselor said it was, my VR counselor said it was too expensive, which was really sad.
Oh no, that's a whole discussion for its own self. Holy moly. I just, and we do have a clip, because I'm fascinated by this, and I want to ask you about this. So if we can, Rachel, can you cue a few seconds of this, so we can hear Katelyn singing, and everyone loves to hear themselves sing. Although you're a professional, so you're like proud of this. If I heard myself sing, I'd run away. I wouldn't even be in this interview.
All right, let's roll the tape, as they say.
So as we hear this, and I took German in high school, and I'm not pretending to even know what you're saying. I know the song is, I think it's like For My Love or something, I believe. Something like
they
that,
all are.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's one thing to learn a language, to learn how to read and write that language, learn how to talk that language. It's an entirely different world to learn how to sing in a language that you don't, I'm assuming, natively speak.
One question I've got. My daughter's actually a audio, sound, and lighting engineer for live performances, and I've always been curious to ask low vision people, how do you go when they use spotlights on stage to spotlight a particular singer or performer, and then you've got different lights going on as well, and you've got dark versus very bright light and that sort of stuff. How does that affect you personally, do you think?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting thought. And, again, this would be different for every low vision case because some people have super sensitivity to light, some people have less. So I'm kind of in the middle where I think I can, I know I have some friends who are very sensitive to light. And so they often just have to wear dark glasses if that's the case, if they're going to be in a spotlight situation, or turn their head and ask that the spotlight be directed, different, work with the lighting person to try to, not be in that direct spotlight at that particular time or whatever it is. For me, it's interesting. I definitely can't see anything out in the audience. I couldn't probably see much anyway because it's too far away from me. But when those bright lights are there, I'm like, well, yep, definitely have no idea if there's like one person out in the audience or 300 or whatever it is. One thing that can be useful. This is not exactly what you were saying, but I actually sometimes use those as cues for me. And so if I know that there are going to generally be like 2 spotlights up in the, kind of diagonal up left field of vision and the diagonal up right, I can say, oh, okay, I'm generally pointed the right direction here versus, I've got it 2 into my right field of vision. I must be a little bit turned. Let me turn myself back. So sometimes they can actually be helpful used as if you will, visual cues, but staging cues. But otherwise, yes, it can be a challenge. I definitely don't rely on my vision as much as possible when I'm on stage. So I try to, just because you never know if something is going to be extra bright or maybe my vision's going to be a little shaky that day and it's going to be harder for me to focus. And I just have no idea in what state I'm going to be, if you will, how quickly my eyes are going to track that at that moment. And so I try to generally do things with alternative techniques anyway, as far as using my feet maybe to find the edge of a rug that's maybe on the stage and that's my spot where I stand, or using the back of a couch to kind of trail along while I'm walking from one side to the other, or maybe grabbing the arm of a fellow actor and pretending, we're sisters and we're dancing around and we're going from one side of the stage to the other.
So Katelyn, you mentioned something about, your sisters and your dancing, but you also do ballroom dancing. Is that right?
I do.
How do you do that as a low vision person? Because dancing is obviously something that requires a lot of movement and spatial awareness. And I would just love to know some of the experiences that you've had in terms of either performing, or is it kind of a ballroom dancing with a partner? How does that work? That's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, thank you. I love it. One thing I think I'm very grateful for, I'm grateful for many things, but one thing my parents did is they encouraged me to try different activities when I was young. And so some of those were dance type things. I did some tap and ballet and then got into clogging for many years, which is kind of like an Irish tap dance combination. Side note, what I loved about that is that it got me comfortable with my body, got me comfortable moving in space and being confident, literally taking a step forward somewhere and using my arms out in the air around me and not being worried about what may happen, if I took one wrong step or something like that. So it really developed a lot of self-confidence and spatial awareness. And so later, when I was in my master's degree, actually, is really when I started doing more ballroom dancing. And a lot of what competitive ballroom dancing is with a partner. You can do certain solo things, but it's a lot of with a partner. And so usually I've been a follow. There are leads and follows traditionally, men and women, but gender roles are more fluid now. And so leads and follows, and I've traditionally been a follow, which for me as a blind person works great, because if we are in a dance that is moving around the stage or the dance floor, I don't need to be as concerned about which direction exactly we're facing, how far our steps are going. That's the lead's job, is to determine direction and kind of pacing of movement and those sorts of things. The follow has other jobs. That's been really helpful for me as someone who's blind, because it takes off a little bit of the pressure. Additionally, there's the whole competitive angle, and so at Carnegie Mellon University and then other places I've lived as well, I've done a little bit of competitive ballroom dancing. And side note, I don't know if you found this in your research, Peter, but I actually met my husband doing ballroom dancing at Carnegie Mellon University.
No way. I clearly didn't do enough research. I would have found that if I'd have kept digging.
But yeah,
I would have found it.
We met on the Carnegie Mellon ballroom dance team, and the rest is history. We became partners, started dancing together, and it's really sweet. Yeah, we've been married for 7 years now, and so it's great. I have a built-in dance partner.
So as we wrap this up, I really want you to talk a bit about your work with the National Federation of the Blind, and you mentioned it, kind of the ball, doing some dance classes. I know I've seen that on agendas. I've been too embarrassed and scared. I haven't gone downstairs.
Oh, you'll have to join us. We might be doing it this year.
I will be in New Orleans. I will be there.
Yeah. I will hold you to it. I'll find you at the exhibit hall.
Now you're in trouble, Peter. You're going to do it now. We want to report back now.
I'm easy to find at those conventions. But can you talk a bit? So you're the president of the Performing Arts Division. Can you talk a bit about, I guess, just where that started? I mean, and we do so much work at HumanWare with the NFB. I mean, we sponsor the scholarships, and you were a former scholarship winner. We do lots of things, everything down to the yearly donor matching campaigns. We do quite a bit of support to local, state level, chapter conventions. We do a lot of things. We're supporters of and partners on projects like the Monarch and going back to the Victor Reader Stream and all sorts of things at HumanWare. But from that standpoint, can you talk a bit about your work there as the president, and maybe some things you're doing or what you've done, and maybe how you're going to kind of push all that forward as we go through 2025 and beyond?
Sure. Yeah. So like you mentioned, I was a scholarship winner way back in 2014. And that's how I really got involved with the National Federation of the Blind. I had grown up hearing about it. My mom had read Future Reflections, the parent magazine, off and on. And so I grew up with a very positive blindness philosophy, as one might say, and knowing that I could, reach for my goals and not let blindness be an obstacle. If I, wanted to try something, I should go for it. And so I had a positive outlook, but when I became a part of the Federation in 2014, it was really exciting to meet, literally several thousand other people who were experiencing similar things. I'd never been in a group of so many blind people before. It was amazing. So I jumped right in and joined the Performing Arts Division board that year and have been on it ever since, and became president, I think it was in 2020. And so I love that we get to really work on just raising expectations for blind people in the entertainment industry, whether as a professional or a hobbyist, whether in music, dance, acting, whatever it is. We want to encourage both blind people and sighted people in the performing arts, that blind people can be performers as well. We can compete with our sighted counterparts in whatever career or hobby we want to do. And, like I was talking about with dance, it might just take some alternative techniques, some adaptations, maybe a little patience on the part of several people. But there are wonderful ways that blind people be involved with performing arts, and that should not be a barrier to reaching for your dreams if that's what you want to do. Let's see, what am I excited about for 2025? We do have our own podcast, so we can share among each other.
Oh, plug it.
We have, our podcast is called Scene Change, SCENE Change, and definitely check us out. We've got about 45 episodes, everything from talking to blind comedians to aerial silks artists to blind ballet, whatever you're interested in. We may have an episode about it, so check it out. We want it to be a resource. We also recently finally put up a new resource called the Blind Performer Fact Sheet, and it lives on the web. I hope I'm going to get this URL right, but you can go to our website, and find it, nfb-pad.org, and it's the Blind Performer Fact Sheet. It's a fairly comprehensive list of ideas for adaptations, alternative techniques that you can use as a blind performer to achieve your goals. So whether you want to be a dancer, hey, maybe some of the things I mentioned, make sure that you're getting verbal instruction, make sure you can feel the instructor's feet if that's helpful for you. If you're acting, maybe you have some tactile tape on the stage that marks your spot where you need to stand. So it's not just visual, it's also tactile. Maybe you're using that sound cue of where the speakers are, where the orchestra is, to know where the front of the stage is. So different things like that to just give you ideas so you don't have to reinvent the wheel and say, how on earth am I going to play in an orchestra? How on earth am I going to act on screen? And so, yeah, we just want it to be, it's a free resource. Anyone can go find it and use it. There's a PDF, an HTML version and a Word version. So you can even download it and, use that, maybe even hand it to a director, edit it, make it your own, and say, hey, these are some things that have worked for me. Take that into an audition if you're a blind performer.
Well, Katelyn, thank you so much for talking with us. And you're going to stick around for another segment or two. It's been so neat, really neat to hear about. I have so many questions. I really do. And so we might have to do something else at some point. Thank you tremendously. And we're going to be right back with some more with Katelyn MacIntyre. Welcome back to another segment here on See Things Differently with HumanWare, the podcast. And this is our hot take piece. And Katelyn is kind enough to join us, continue to be here with us. We haven't driven her away. She actually wanted to leave. We had to like call her, convince her to come back. No, we didn't have to do that. But we're glad Katelyn has stuck around. And we want to talk a bit about, and again, the whole point of this segment is to talk about a topic. We don't need to be highly controversial, but just talk about something where we may have differing opinions on how and when we handle certain facets of blindness. And in this piece, I want to touch on disability disclosure and when and how, or when we feel comfortable. And everyone out there is going to feel differently about how or when you disclose your disability. I'm primarily thinking about this through a job application side of things. Katelyn as a performer, even myself. I mean, sometimes it comes down to, when we're needing someone to do something in our house. When do we disclose our disability? How do we do it? And what are our thoughts? And I have the floor, so I'll kind of kick it off to say that personally, I usually let it be known that I am totally blind. I don't often, I've had several job interviews where I've gotten that out of the way rather quickly. I have absolutely had that serve as a reason for not continuing with more interviews, and I know that. And that's a bummer, but I feel comfortable enough and I'm confident enough to disclose. But I've also had times where I wish I would have been more, been able to be more present with the disability in terms of someone will come to the door, somebody will come to do something. And if I'm not ready with my cane at that moment, they just think I'm a clueless person. This happened a couple of weeks ago, where somebody's coming and trying to deliver pizza. And I didn't even know they were there. I thought they were a few steps or feet away, and I almost wiped them out on my front step. I'm just curious for all of us here, and I'll start with you, Katelyn. Mm-hmm. Do you disclose your blindness? I mean, people, I guess, at this point might know something as they kind of know who you are and as you have notoriety and kind of you do all these neat things. But what are your thoughts on that? How do you disclose? When you disclosed? And has it been something that you've maybe changed over time or sometimes you do or don't?
I'm a cane user, and so generally I disclose just by the nature of the fact that I have my cane with me, and if I'm walking into a space, people are going to see that and see, oh, she has this cane. Okay, is that a blindness cane? Okay, yeah, it's just, probably blind. So if it's somewhere where I'm physically present, walking into the space, I have my cane, which is, 99.9% of the time, I will disclose, just because otherwise I feel like it'd be awkward if I didn't say anything sometimes, right? It's if I leave it, it becomes the elephant in the room. Whereas if I say, hey, yeah, I'm blind, do you mind if, can you show me where I'm signing the paper? Or do you mind if I take a seat here? Is this available? Whatever it is, if I just kind of get it out of the way, it sometimes loosens that tension. The only time I would say I haven't really disclosed necessarily is in our lovely, last few years since the pandemic with Zoom and other conferencing services, being online and even with video, I may not, people may not realize that I'm blind. I've been in I don't know, maybe a Bible study or something that I've been meeting with these people for several months, and all of a sudden I'll drop something, oh, being blind, and they're like, wait, what? You're blind. So, oh yeah, I guess I never mentioned that. And in that case, it is kind of nice sometimes not to disclose it in those situations. But for me, for jobs as a performer, they're going to find out pretty quick. I'm going to need some accommodations. I'm going to need some adaptations, maybe in the choreography or in the blocking. And so I just figure I want to get it out of the way and get the elephant out of the room.
I definitely know that there are certainly people who, especially on the job interview front, who will not disclose, and will say, look, I mean, it has no impact on the job that I'm going to perform. And I totally respect and understand that. And I think, though, I then personally, I couldn't do it only because I know that I am, my blindness, it's not going to define me, but it is, part of who I am. It's probably the last thing you'll remember, but it certainly is something that you're going to have to encounter. And so I tend to kind of bring it forward. But I know that there is definitely, a group of folks who will say, no, we don't, it's not right to disclose. There's no reason to. It has no bearing on the job or the work that I'm going to be doing.
It's funny, Peter, because I disclose all the time, particularly when I'm competition in karate, because two things happen to me. If I don't say anything, people end up running into me or I run into them and they go, watch where you're going. That's number one. Number two, and I don't know visually if this is correct, but because I use a white cane, if people aren't looking at it properly, it can actually be seen as a bow or a weapon. So I got in trouble for one day from a black belt saying, you're not allowed to walk around outside of the mat with that bow, don't you? And I went, huh? And I went, oh, sorry, this is a white cane. I'm a blind person. Hello, it's pleased to meet you. And they went, oh, I'm terribly sorry. Just at first glance, it looked like a bow staff. And I went, whoops. So, so particularly for competition, I always make sure that, say, can't see, blind as a bat, blah, 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 whatever you want to call me, absolutely fine. But just be aware that I will not be able to see you when you move.
I don't disclose with Uber Eats, and I've definitely had situations where, and this was when I lived back in my previous location, I'll walk outside, meet the driver. They think it couldn't possibly be a blind person who's ordering food. So I don't know how long we've probably stood there for like 5 minutes until they're like, Rachel? Yes? Did you order food? I sure did. Blind people get hungry too. So.
Yeah.
Blind people need to eat too. Yeah.
I live on a fire lane, as you know, Rachel, where it's like you don't really drive down it, and it's just a disaster to get food here. And believe me, I order food like twice a week, and it's a disaster.
This really goes extremely well into our cringe moments because I've had lots over the last long time, and I'm sure everybody else here. So, Peter, you can take it away and you can start with your... Actually, no, hang on. Let's make Rachel go first with her first cringe moment.
Let's do it. I am ready for this one. So, this cringe moment is brought to you by the overly helpful citizens that we have all encountered in various environments. Now, I'm going to start at the airport. I travel a lot for my work, as David and Peter and even Katelyn, you've certainly had your travels. And as we go around, we find various ways that work for us in terms of travel. I tend to travel pretty light with just my carry-ons, with my technology and backpack and things. And it seems to never fail that when I request assistance, not a wheelchair or anything, they tend to send a wheelchair. And that's usually fine. You can kind of say, hey, thank you for bringing this, but I don't need it. The interesting part comes when they decide you do need it, that they tend to know your needs better than you know your own. And I've definitely mentioned to the person, say, I really don't. And they say, oh, but I have to take this chair. Why don't you just sit down? It will be faster. I say, usually, no, I think I can walk faster than you can push this chair. And I have put my bags in the chair. And I'm sure they've gotten some very interesting looks.
Yeah, this is my move. Put the bags in the chair. We can use that. You can take that chair. I'll put my suitcase on it.
Exactly. And then you don't have to roll it, but you can roll it in the chair. So that's how I tend to deal with overly helpful and wheelchair insisting airport personnel.
Yeah, I'll touch on this. I was doing some, in the theme, in the motif, that's for you, Katelyn, the motif of overly zealous or helpful folks. And again, usually well-meaning, good intentions, but just I was doing some capturing of intersections and doing some recording of and different things and testing out some Stellar Trek accuracy pieces. Stellar Trek, a HumanWare product, of course. And there was somebody who followed me, and I'm talking, I don't know where this person was supposed to be. And this person was clearly like, they had somewhere to be. They were working in the university. I live near the University of Illinois at Chicago. This person followed me for like 3 different intersections and just kept wanting to help me cross the streets. And it became clear that I wasn't there to cross the street. I was trying to cross all 4 streets. I was going in a big circle, essentially. And I just kept saying, I'm good. I've got this. I'm all right. Thank you so much. Finally, it was like, I hope you have an awesome weekend. I was just like, then I was, the person still, I'm like, I just hope it's a great day, But and there are times where I'll take this help and I'll say, somebody's being overly nice. I will let them help me simply because I will probably never see them again, and they will feel good for helping me, even though I don't need it. I'm never one to be adamant, like, please don't, I've got this, go away. I won't do that. But there are times where it's just, it's so hard because you want to just say, please let me do some informed discovery here. Let me learn about this space. I'm sure you've had some of this, Katelyn, right? Like people just wanting they're like overbearing.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it made me think of one actually related to performing arts. So one of the things I was mentioning a little bit earlier about stage layouts and people having this irrational fear that I'm going to fall off the stage, which I know it's happened to people over the years. It's not to say that it could never happen. But I thankfully have never fallen off a stage. I almost fell off a riser once, but I survived.
I think it's happened, but I think a lot of times it has nothing to do with blindness.
Exactly. Totally. And so one time this person was so concerned over like this one step up to the stage, and my mom was actually there. And so of course they were talking to her, not to me, because, that's another thing people do. But she was saying, oh yeah, Katelyn will be fine, and the person was like, oh, well, but is it going to be okay? Is she going to fall? No, she'll be fine. Okay, because she has a 6th sense, right? She has a 6th sense, so that's why she'll be fine, right?
Oh, cringeworthy.
My mom was just like, at that point, yes, she'll be fine, because it's like, what do you say to that? No, I do not have a 6th sense, I have the same senses as you. But anyway, so those very well-meaning people who are just overly concerned for our safety, and we're going to be just fine.
Well, we this segment is always interesting. I think we will never have a shortage of pieces of info to talk on the cringeworthy part of this podcast, because, and again, it is not to say that these are situations that are bad or wrong. Last time we talked about having stains on your clothing and what do you want to be told, or how do you want to be told? There's always these things, and there's no right or wrong answers. But I think it's great to shed some light on some of this. And I will, to anyone out there who is this, please just address the person you want to talk to, unless you're told not to, or it's said, if there's somehow you're informed that you shouldn't or don't need to talk to the person that you want to talk to, just speak to us. It's a very simple thing, and I think it just comes up time and time again. Remember, we will have Katelyn's bio in the show notes, as well as ways to follow her on social media. Please reach out. We want to hear from you. I've already received some great feedback from those of you who've listened to the first episode or 2. So please send us a note, podcast@humanware.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the tips and tricks segment of See Things Differently with HumanWare. And this month, with the low vision theme, I'm joined by our HumanWare Zone product manager for low vision, Roger Steinberg. How's it going, Roger?
Sick, Peter. I'm just trying to stay warm.
Yeah, I think we all are. It's cold. Welcome to February. Unless for all of our friends listening in Australia, they're not cold, but good for them.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I've had enough already.
So we're going to talk a bit about some low vision tips and tricks. And a lot of this, I'm totally blind. And so, I hear these things. And I think for many of us, even if you're newer to vision loss, you hear certain terms and just wonder, what does that mean? And this comes up often. And I want to be able to kind of let Roger talk about a couple of key terms that he deals with and that we hear about from time to time, just simplify what those terms mean. And the first one I want to start with is going to be optical versus digital zoom. So Roger, can you touch a bit on what are the differences between optical versus digital zoom? What does it really mean?
Yeah, I think it can be really confusing to folks, and unless you're involved in this on a day-to-day basis, you could be confused by this very easily. But optical zoom is going to be certain people of my age would be familiar with this, but it's going to be a physical lens. So you think about the old hand magnifier that you would use, or the lenses that are used in photography for high-level photography, like you see at sporting events or in nature to capture birds aflight and so forth. So using a physical lens. And the nice thing about that is there's no degradation of what you're seeing, although they do have their limits as to how far you can go at times. Whereas digital zoom, almost all of us are using this now because we're walking around with cell phones in our pockets and you're using a digital device, and that's taking an image and turning it into bits and pieces that you can see on the screen, which are called pixels. But this means that as you increase your magnification level, you can get some pixelation happen to what you're looking at. The nice thing is it allows you to go to higher levels, but you do get that somewhat of a degradation of what you're looking at, if you will, as you go to higher levels of zoom. So we like to do combinations of those.
Are there products that we have at HumanWare? I know that we have a wide range of low vision devices that you manage. Which of our products would utilize either digital or the optical zoom, or both? Where do we fit in?
Sure. Well, we use optical zoom in our Reveal 16 and Reveal 16i, which are our larger magnification devices. We classify those as transportable because they can be folded up and carried around. But they run about 16 inches in size. And then, of course, we use digital zoom in our Explore line, which we have a 5-inch, an 8-inch, and a 12-inch model. And we also use digital zoom a good bit in our Prodigy software because we're utilizing document cameras when we're using that. But again, the knowledge of the two allows you to understand, what you're working with. And in a device like the Reveal 16, where we combine the two, so you have some optical zoom, and then we cut over to a digital zoom, it helps you to understand what you're going to achieve by using the device. So that's why it's important. And that digital zoom does allow you to get that more compact size, so you have something that can help you out wherever you may find yourself. Again, going back to the idea of your cell phone, it's got the smaller screen, it's very compact, but it is using digital zoom all the time. And just to throw it in there, we do have an Explore magnifier app that you can throw on your cell phones, either your Google phones or your iPhones out there.
Love it. Another one that comes up a lot that I hear mentioned, and certainly have no clue as to deciphering exactly what it means, is positive versus negative presentation. Or can you talk a bit on that? What does that mean?
Yeah. So, if you think about it, when you're using a magnifier, obviously, if it's a handheld, you are just going to see things as they naturally would. So you've got that, a handheld magnifier like we grew up with, the round on the end of a stick that you use to look at things. You're seeing things in full color. Likewise, when you're looking through a camera lens, that physical lens, you're seeing everything in full color. Some eye conditions, it becomes very useful to be able to take away the color and strip it away, if you will, and come back with a image that is either full black on white, so black text on a white background, or white text on a black background. So these would be called positive and negative. So the positive would be black text on a white background. Negative would be white text or lighter colored text on a black background. And all of our devices do this, but understanding what it is can be helpful. I'm using the example of black on white. We have a multitude of colors you can choose from to do that inversion. So you could have a blue on a yellow, yellow on a blue, and things like this.
Yeah. And I know for some of our devices, you have like 16 possible combos, right?
Oh, yeah. We have 16. In fact, we've added, most recently, we added white on red and red on white at the request of our customers. So, we are listening to the voice of customers. And again, this becomes something of not just a personal preference, but what do you require to get the best experience when you're using the device? And of course, this level of contrast can really improve the readability for individuals with low vision.
So I think of just Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Blue on Black, and so I need you to add that, even though it would make no sense. I need you to add that into one of our color combos if you can.
Right on. Gotcha.
The next one here, and kind of the final piece, and this is something I've heard a lot, especially with our Explore Magnifier series, and I don't fully understand this. This is lines and blinds. This comes up quite often as a talking point when somebody is giving a presentation. Oh, we support lines and blinds, or you change these settings. What are lines and blinds, and how do they help somebody using, a magnification device?
Right. So again, this is terminology that as you start to look into digital magnification, you're going to hear these terms thrown around. So essentially what lines are is like a reading line or a line marker. They can be horizontal. Most frequently, they are used horizontally, although we can convert those to a vertical bar, if you will. But if you, for those that have read books in the past, using a bookmark to guide yourself to stay on a line, that's basically what it does. It just creates a space for you to have one line of text to show at one time. So this would, remove a lot of visual distraction, some eye conditions that becomes clutter, as well as, and I should mention that there are times where persons with other forms of learning disabilities could be using the tool. So you could have a visual issue as well as a attention disorder, and being able to focus in on just a line of text at one time can be very helpful in those regards. There are also eye conditions or conditions where the eye drifts off of a line of text, and this can keep you on that line of text to maintain that focus. Blinds are very simple, but they are a little bit larger area, but they block off an area of surrounding text. So you want to think of this as sort of like a teleprompter view, where only the text to read is shown, typically a line at a time. But again, it's just another mode of sort of driving the focus of what you're looking at. So having both to choose from is really helpful so that the individual can choose which one reduces any visual clutter they might be experiencing, to what they need to have the best experience possible when they're using a device.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Roger. This is super helpful. And again, as someone, I'm totally blind, or if somebody kind of hears lots of these terms or sifts through different things, it could be a bit hard to understand, and I appreciate just having some clarity. And thanks for joining our tips and tricks segment for the second episode of Seeing Things Differently with HumanWare.
Good thing, Peter. I love it. I can't wait to do it again.
Rock and roll.
Take care.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Partner Corner. And this month, as it is Low Vision Awareness Month, I have a friend of mine, and actually somebody who is another HumanWare distributor, who is low vision and runs a business that sells and deals with a lot of low vision equipment, both HumanWare and other product lines. His name is Sloan Morris. How's it going, Sloan? How are you?
Great, Peter. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm glad you're here. It's a happy, nice, and freezing cold afternoon where we are. We're both in Illinois, and it's cold.
Yes, it is.
But for our friends listening in Australia, I mentioned this earlier, it's not cold, and I wish it was summer here, but we'll soon enough. Sloan, you are someone who, you are low vision yourself, and you run a business called Innovative Vision Products. Can you talk a bit about how you started in this field? Was it because of your vision loss, or what got you into kind of running the company you do?
Yeah, it definitely was because of my vision loss. First noticed when I was losing my vision when I was 9 years old, and was in mainstream business most of my life, doing the corporate thing. And then I had a thought that, I would really like to do something different outside of the corporate world. And I thought it'd be great if I could be in business, but also help people. And just being able to help other people that had vision loss was kind of a natural fit. I've used assistive technology since I was 15 years old. So and I know how much it benefited me in my day-to-day life. So I thought, there's a lot of people that do not know about all the options that are available to them. So that's what got me started. And so in 2004, I started Innovative Vision Products. And, what we do is we go around and work with both individuals and agencies, institutions, you name it, and really just try to help them find solutions that will make their daily lives or their work life or anything much easier than people that are struggling with low vision, because a lot of them, are new to low vision. It's not something they've had all their life. So the change over from being fully sighted to having a vision impairment can be quite daunting for a lot of individuals.
Do you think it's easier for you to relate to your potential customers because you have a visual impairment yourself? I was kind of, I'm totally blind, and I definitely have a bit of rapport, more so than others who might be sighted and working in this space. And not that they can't develop that, but do you find yourself doing a lot of almost counseling or working with somebody through a situation as much as you do demonstrating or talking about a product?
Definitely. That's a lot of it, because I go in there, when I'm going in there, I want to make sure that they're better off when I leave there, whether it be giving them some tips and tricks for living with low vision, or coming up with a device that will make their life a lot easier. Working with them, a lot of times I have to, it gives me instant credibility, I'll say that. Once they know that I've walked in their shoes, then, the edge, if they had up like, oh, what's this guy doing in my house, or what's he coming here to sell me? Once we get that established, that I use the products as well and depend on them, it gives us instant credibility. The one thing I do have to remember is I'm there to solve their vision problem. So just because maybe a certain device doesn't help me with my vision condition, they may benefit from it, a lot more than I would have. So I have to remember, they're the ones that I'm there trying to help. Because sometimes I think, oh, well, I don't see so well at this one, but I see better at this one. Well, I need to make sure I know that they are finding the right device that's going to help them. So I usually ask them, think of 8 or 10 things you struggle with day in, day out. And I tell them, we're not going to find a device that meets every single need, but we should be able to find a device that meets 80% of those needs. And you can go on from there, and it should make your life a lot easier and give you back some independence.
Yeah. I guess for yourself, do you have an absolute, a device you use consistently, not only just in your personal life, but something to run on a daily basis? Do you have a daily driver of technology that you kind of use all the time? Are you using lots of different AT, or do you just kind of use one computer and that's about it?
I am definitely going with the toolbox approach. So I have multiple things depending on what I need. And being in the industry, I guess I'm a little bit spoiled because I have access to all of those. But
yeah.
I started
You and I were together last week. I'm going to get you to use that Stellar Trek all the time.
Yeah, that would be great, because more and more I find a need for that. But no, I go, I've started using a CCTV, closed circuit television, as people call them, video magnifiers we call them nowadays, when I was 15. So that's quite a while ago, and that's kind of a crutch I still have on my desk. But as my vision, gets a little worse each year, I'm not quite as effective on that. So I have gone to more speech. So on my computer, I use Fusion, which is both gives me low vision and speech output. And then on my, and then I have a phone that I go to that I voice over on my iPhone. So, but then a lot of other things, because what has happened is, what is so great about technology now is it's gotten so much smaller and so much easier to use. Anything from the portable magnifiers, like the Explorer line of products, just makes it a lot easier to have things at my side and that I can just grab. And for some people, especially when they're new to low vision, they're a little apprehensive about having a device that looks out of the ordinary. But a lot of devices now just look like an iPad, and people don't stick out, especially for kids in school. They don't really want to use something that's going to make them any different than their classmates, but they pull out, like an Explorer 8 or Explorer 12, then it looks like they're just on an iPad.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. and coming, from myself, I was using all kinds of crazy looking Braille devices or big braillers and things. And now today to have even Braille devices fitting that, where you don't just kind of stand out, it's a big difference from where we were even a few years ago. Can I ask you one other thing before we wrap this up? You have done, and I think this is important. You've done some support groups and things over the years I know of, and yes, you're very local to the Illinois sort of distribution network here, and for us, you're a big partner here. But do you still do much of that? And I think it's important for people to know that there are low vision support groups. There are support groups out there. Can you talk a little bit about what your role was or is in those kinds of spaces? Because I know they exist in all over the world, really.
Yes, I truly enjoy getting up and speaking with people about coping and living with, low vision and vision impairments. I think it's important when people go to a support group that they realize, they're there to learn and try to grow and cope, and not there just to complain about their vision condition. Because if you get, too many of those people in the group, it really drags the group down. It's hard to move forward with helping everybody grow in their knowledge of, just living with low vision and how best to live their daily lives. So I enjoy that, and I enjoy sharing my experiences with other people, and they tend to open up and share their experiences as well. And then we just kind of talk about, how they work through that situation, how best to handle it going forward. And I relate to them that, most people we encounter, a lot of them have never met somebody else that has a vision condition that can't be corrected with glasses. And so they really don't know how to interact with us sometimes. And I tell them, they get their cues off how we handle our own condition ourselves. So if we kind of have an edge to us and say, well, don't ask me about my vision, I don't want to talk about it, well, then that puts them on edge. Once we are able to cope with our condition ourselves, they will take our lead. So if we say, this is my, I have trouble seeing distance, or I have trouble reading if it's not magnified, then they get their cues from us, and they learn to cope with it.
Yeah, and I know there are lots of groups out there. I just wanted to touch on that because you are a great resource, I think, for people who are newer to vision loss, and just have that good experience, that lived experience. So thanks so much for joining. And I know this was very quick, but can you tell us tell the listeners where they can find more about your company and I guess just how they might be able to get in touch with you if they do go to your website. Is there an email or anything you want to provide there? And we'll put this in the show notes as well.
The best way to reach me would be on our website, which is innovativevisionpro.com. And I represent products just in the state of Illinois. So if you need other people, there's definitely other people that you can get in touch with.
Rock and roll. Thanks, Sloan.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the final piece of this, which is the upcoming shows segment, where we will tell you where you can find us. Should you want to stop by our booth and say hi, thanks to all of you who came out to ATIA in Orlando, amongst our other shows. We are going to be at the Phoenix AER conference on March 7th. That'll be in Phoenix, Arizona. We will be at the CSUN conference, one of the biggest AT conferences, especially, concerning North America at least. That will be taking place from the 10th to the 14th of March in Anaheim, California. And then we will be at the NFB of California conference from the 14th to the 16th of March. Please come find us, come say hi. Could be a mix of representatives or find our distributors. Certainly we have a large network of those, as you have heard. So we will see you when we do. And thank you again to Katelyn for stopping by. For David and Rachel, this is Peter saying we'll see you on the third Thursday of April. Thanks all.
If you have comments or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Please send them to podcast@humanware.com. That's podcast@humanware.com. We'll see you next month.